The opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. Good evening and welcome to the Armchair Monologues on the problem of being awake. My name's Ben, I'll be your host. And this is episode 9 about depression and my years as a therapist and what I can do to maybe give people some useful advice and explain the condition in a bit more detail, because it's affecting so many more people around the world in last, really since COVID. I think it's been a big problem, and mental health has not had the focus it probably should have done because of some of the culture wars, and I think a lot of things have fallen by the wayside there. You know, if someone's depressed and anxious when they're young, or we're getting so much more mental health disorders in young people in the Western world now. And, I think that the kind of loud majority take over and they have their own mental health issues, but that doesn't mean that other people aren't growing up with problems. And also there's adults who, through lockdown, things happened. You had a massive rise in substance abuse, and then you had a massive rise in overall mental health prescriptions worldwide. So you can't really, there's no way of suggesting that it didn't have a massive effect. It did. And many people haven't come out of their lives that they lived in lockdown. In fact, probably most of us, I'd say, haven't fully come out of our lives we lived in lockdown. I think, analyse if you spend as much more time in the house than you did before lockdown. I think everybody would say probably yes. And do you spend more time online? Yes. Do you work from home more? Yes. Do you do a lot of your meetings on Zoom? Yes. These are all signs that are outside ability, if you like, for society. It can be reinstated. It's not a good thing for us to live with less human contact. And when I say human contact, I mean that every human, from the people you work with to the people you live with, to the people you love, and to the shopkeeper who you visit on your way home, or whatever. It's all interaction. Human interaction is key, and it's not easily replaced. So we have a kind of epidemic of loneliness at the moment. Now, there's two types of depression. There's situational depression, which is the majority of depression. And then you have clinical depression. Now, the good thing, it doesn't mean that the clinical depression is more severe than the situational depression. It just means that the thing that causes the depression within the person is based around the situation. And let's just take a blanket, easy example of grief. Depression people feel when they're grieving is situational. Now, there are certain therapeutic rules about when you can interfere with grief and things like that. And it's not something depending on how close someone was to whatever whoever they lost or what they lost. It was a marriage. You can grieve over things that aren't dead. You can grieve over the loss of a job. But, once that grief's over, there's a path forward. And, like I said, loss of a job, you could become depressive. You can't find another job quickly, but there's a path forward, and it would include you getting another job, but it also would include things that you can do to put yourself in the position you want to be, so that things can start happening in the way that you want. Now, this is with situational depression, it can be a downward spiral of negative actions causing negative thoughts, causing more negative actions, causing more negative thoughts, and I'm not talking about highly negative. I'm just talking about negative self-thinking. It can spiral down until you're absolved and you're completely forlorn of any hope. And that would be a very deep, dark depression. Now, if you live with clinical depression, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And the same things are good to manage it, but it's going to be coming back and back and back. And that's the sad reality of clinical depression. Sorry, there's a slight interruption there. Someone tried to come in while I was recording. Now, so with clinical depression, obviously there is the familiarity with it, which makes it easier to deal with in some ways. But then the lengths of and the depths of clinical depression will often sink much further down than situational depression really ever does. Although it may feel similar, clinical depression can be absolutely debilitating, and leave people with, if you're left without hope for the whole of your life, it will affect your life. It will affect the way you look at the world, and eventually, you can become a tortured soul. So it is good to look at things to manage depression. So the classic therapy of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what is generally applied as the sort of second line beyond counselling for people who are depressed, and it's kind of the only therapy that actually the governments can afford, and it's not necessarily the best, but it does work for depression. And specifically situational depression. I think for clinical depression, I used to work much more with the subconscious mind, using some hypnosis and practical tools and just, getting to the roots of problems over a period, and then trying to actually undo them that way. There's often a lot of reasons for clinical depression that are situational, are built up over time. So, multiple situations. So depression is a low time state. So we have uptime states on one side of our nervous system, to put it in a metaphor, and low time states on the other. Now, neither is great or good, because there's uptime states: anger, rage, ecstasy, joy. So, and then downtime states: depression, sadness, loneliness, calmness, contentment, relaxation. So you need a balance of both. And typically, obviously, with depression, you're in your low time state. Now, one thing that is pretty useful to know is that if you're depressed, to be depressed, you require less oxygen. To be in an uptime state, you require more oxygen. So you'll generally be moving a lot more quickly and, sort of doing a lot more physically than you're likely to be if you're in a depressed low time state. And the reason to bring in oxygen as part of this discussion, and that's why I have these long form discussions to discuss things like that, is because a low time state, an uptime state, requires more oxygen to continue and to go. Low time states don't. So there's breathing exercises to bring people down from like heightened anxiety, which is an uptime state. And anxiety and depression are intrinsically linked in many people. So it's good to know both sides and what you can do to bolster either. So I have a kind of 7-point plan that helps with depression. And you need to get to know yourself and sort of understand how you feel, what type of therapy you've had, what works best for you. If you read self-help books, be careful. Don't take advice from everybody, because not everybody is right. And you might find, people like Jordan Peterson, obviously, he gives great advice. Tony Robbins is popular amongst a lot of people, but don't try and constantly look to some other person's writing to bolster your internal feelings, because you're not going to reach it. What that writing might suggest is ways that you can bolster your own internal feelings, and that is it. The part that is essential and is to have successful therapy, to get success from your therapy, you have to have a deep desire to have that success and be willing to work towards it. Because without putting in any external work, the depression downward spiral doesn't stop. But if you put in the work, you quickly see the results. And that's the really good thing about CBT, is you can turn that into an upward spiral, which is positive thoughts make positive actions, make positive thoughts make positive actions. And these can be at the micro level. If you're an untidy person, picking up something off your floor that should be in the bin and putting it in the bin is a positive action. Doesn't seem like much, but if you wouldn't ordinarily do it and then you do it, then you know your day's going slightly better, and you'll start to, if you practice a few things I'm going to say, you'll start to feel and know your life is going slightly better. So I'll take it from the last time I was down. What really down? What I had to do was I had to build myself back up. Now, the subconscious is responsible for releasing the chemicals. It's also can easily be tricked. That's why hypnosis works, because it's got an emotional maturity of a 7-year-old, and it's the conscious brain that has the adult maturity. So it's always it mirrors the projections of how you feel and the internal dialogue within your head, and that for depression and anxiety, the internal dialogue around your head is the most important thing to try and make efforts to change, to make more positive towards yourself. Because if you're constantly thinking negatively about yourself, it's very hard to get any self-esteem going, to get any courage to move forward. So basic things like music has a fantastic effect on the neurochemicals of our body. It's just designed to bring peace. It depends on the music. Obviously, you can, again, uptime music will bring an uptime state. It'll G you up. Eye of the Tiger stuff, or you've got, Vivaldi, and that will calm you down. Music has incredible powers over our various neurochemicals. There were quite a few, but commonly known, serotonin, and then GABA, for anxiety. So GABA is your calm receptors of your nervous system, and the neurochemicals released to create a release of GABA into your nervous systems are things that can be manufactured by you. And to release serotonin and other really not necessarily adrenaline, but something similar and kind of active way of thinking. And as I said, vitality is the opposite of depression. It's not happiness, it's vitality. It's wanting to get out of bed in the morning and do things, as opposed to really hating the fact that you have to do that. That's the key difference. And here's some tips. Music, brilliant. Singing, amazing. If you sing every day in the shower, you will noticeably be happier over a period of a month. Just that one thing. And when you can't sing, humming and whistling also has a smaller but similar effect on the neurochemicals inside your brain. The key one that really is a net benefit is doing things and going out of your way for other people. For instance, if I'm feeling a bit low, I might make a couple of customer service calls that I've been thinking about making for a while. And then I kind of make them. I'm extra polite. I have very good manners. I make sure I'm very friendly, overly friendly, not overly friendly as in improperly friendly, but very friendly. And I always leave them with a joke at the end. And if you're doing good things for other people, it's a completely transactional thing. The benefit comes back on you because you think, oh, I've made that person's day a bit better. And if you can do that on a couple of occasions, that's great. Now, movement is really important. You can tell in the body language of someone who's completely depressed, but you can fake your way out of depression using different body language. So you adopt the postures, the body language of people who are full of contentment or joy or whatever. So even sort of stretching out, but exercising. There's a reason why exercise promotes positive health. There's two sides of the brain hemisphere. In the middle, there's something called the line of neuroplasticity, and exercise simulates the brain in a way that keeps it very, very agile, because it swaps from hemisphere to hemisphere much more quickly than it would do in normal life when you're sort of sitting at your desk or whatever it is. So when you're walking, walk with purpose and try and walk with grace, and try and involve your hips. Now, I know this might sound crazy, but if you just try and make your walk a bit of a dance, because dancing is a major, major positive neurochemical release. And I think everybody who's scared of dancing but has tried it and enjoyed it once they've got into it knows that. Dancing makes everybody happy. That's why lots of people do it, and that's why, at weddings it's a big thing. It's because dancing has always historically made people happy, and it still always does. And if you can turn your walk into a dance, which I did for quite a long time, then you kind of get your mood license just by the kind of graceful way that you're moving. You don't need to feel it. You really need to fake it if you have to, because the results will be the same. You'll get there in the end. Now, it's not easy when you're full of desperation and hopelessness to pick yourself up, but a key thing to getting over either depression or anxiety, well, I'm doing another video on anxiety, so I'll stick to depression here, but is you have to take a responsibility. Now, you can be the most I have to take a sip in these long form discussions. So you have to take personal responsibility. Without taking personal responsibility for your mental state, you're not likely to get out of it, not anytime soon. It doesn't mean that you need to take responsibility for the things or the situations that caused it. They may be out of your control. They may be well out of your control. They may be out of your spectrum of even imagining at the point before it happened. And you don't take responsibility for that. But you are responsible for how you drag yourself through the rest of the world and the rest of your life. And if you're responsible for how you drag yourself through the rest of your life, you're kind of responsible for how you drag yourself through every day. The best phrase that I've ever had, I've always had in every office I've had, is the only person you should try and be better than is the person you were yesterday, because you've got no idea. That's the phrase, but you've got no idea what anyone else is thinking or suffering or how they experience life. So you can only see their outside. So you can't compare your mental inside to their external vision that they're trying to portray to the world, because they're so violent. They're vehemently opposed ideas. No one is presenting their absolute true self to the world. They may with some very close people, but generally speaking, people are hiding things that are on their mind. So if you can make human interaction, add a bit of dance, a bit of skipping a step to fake it, it will start to feel good, I promise you. And then start to work on how you talk to yourself, and notice if you start doing things that you ordinarily would procrastinate about. Procrastination is the enemy of depression. Procrastination is basically saying, I'll get out of my depression later. Now, if you, as a therapist, it's very frustrating when people procrastinate, because you're like, now is now. You're paying money. Procrastination is not going to get you better. You have to get over that. It has to be dropped as an idea. So no procrastination, no putting things off. If you're in a bad place, the best thing you can do is be an action man or woman. You literally just make yourself somebody who acts positively. I don't mean lies to people about how they feel and things and that kind of thing, but take actions that a positive person would take, physical actions. So there's brilliance in the clean up your room from Jordan Peterson, and I'll kind of add this. It's called the washing up syndrome, and it goes like this. One day you have your dinner and you decide it's late, you watched a film, whatever, you're going to wash up in the morning. Then you're late for work, you go to work, you come back. It's been a stressful day. So you see the washing up, but you think, I'll have a glass of wine first, and then I'll do the washing up. And then you start cooking again, and then again you look at it, and at night you think, I'm really tired now, I'll do it tomorrow. And ad infinitum. But what happens is, as that pile of washing up piles up, and this is true of a house or a room or anything like that, it becomes insurmountable. And every time you look at it, you feel slightly guilty. It's something you've done to yourself in your own head. You've procrastinated about something so much that you feel guilty, and that almost freezes your capability to do it until you finally do it, and you feel a great sense of relief. Now, if you're an active person, you're doing it every time. And you don't therefore have that, I should have done this on this day, I should have done that. You don't want to be coming out of days with regrets about the ways you should have been pushing yourself forward if you're in a bad place. If you're in a bad place, you've got to take responsibility for small actions to push yourself forward. One thing I recommend really highly is something I call whispering to the world. It's just you put on a voice recording and you start talking about something that annoys you slightly but is irrelevant really. And what will happen is your subconscious brain, which is full of mysteries and miracles, I've got another video on that before this, but your subconscious brain will realise you're talking drivel and will direct your brain on tangents, and those tangents will help. They help anyone, and if you're brainstorming ideas or you want ideas, but equally if you want just to express how you feel, maybe come to some sort of realisation, you have to kind of think philosophically. And a lot of depressed people are quite capable of doing that. And then just talk and watch what comes out of your voice. I say give it half an hour and you'll find that something of real value does come out, because your subconscious just takes over and just starts talking about the things that are actually on your mind, the things that are pressing for you. So to kind of wrap that up, the only real way out of depression is not just seeing a decent therapist, although I would advise that if your situation is bad. Going on medication is fine, absolutely fine, should be no stigma about it, but you don't really want to have to rely on it for life unless you have clinical depression. So be careful of that. But I'm not here to give you medical advice on that kind of thing. I'm just talking about the therapy mixed with medication works quite well. Neither without doesn't work as good. Therapy over medication would certainly be the preference. So that's how I feel. That's an opinion. I'm not giving you medical advice. Let's make that clear. So music, light up your life with some music. Nostalgic songs are very good. Things that remind you of a time when you were happier. Listen to a couple of them every day. You'll see it change. Make sure you've got something on like that in the car. Music brings joy, music brings memories, music excites people. So music needs to become a part of your life. And even if you don't want to listen to it, force yourself to listen to Pharrell Williams, Happy. I did that for 8 years with every client I saw. I made them listen to it in silence. And literally everyone would have a smile on their face by the end of it. Because it's really about not taking life too seriously. And that's what people who are depressed, and I'm prone to depression, and that's what they do. So just to recap on what I've said, and if anxiety is more you think, I mean, they are intrinsically linked to lots of people. My next video will be on coping mechanisms for anxiety. One of which is useful for depression as well. I'm going to share that now, which is your brain hemispheres aren't used to transferring like every second. So if you get a pair of balled up socks in each hand, just squeeze them rhythmically. Not fast, but not slowly, and not hard and not weakly, just middle of the road, then it will calm down any kind of anxious, nervous, or excited or agitated state that you're in, because it's making the brain do things it shouldn't do, and it will tire out the emotion you're feeling. Now, on the depression side, just moving with posture and grace and purpose, and if you adopt the posture and the purpose of movement while you're depressed, you will see a benefit just from that in a few days. But if you add in the grace element, you start to find yourself having a bit of fun. And there's nothing wrong with a bit of dancing. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing it. You know, it literally floods you with chemicals that you love. I mean, I love to exercise. I love to lift weights because of the feeling I get internally afterwards. You know, nothing's coming for me in my mind after I've just done that. And that's where I am right now. There will be times when I'm on the floor. And I will remind you that the only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. And some days, that's simply taking a shower. because the day before something went wrong, and the day before you couldn't get out of bed. Just getting out of bed is getting better than you were yesterday. And if you can grasp that policy, that idea, that concept, that if you make one positive movement extra per day, one positive, and it doesn't need to be big. It's just it's a tiny step. If you get into the habit of doing that, it will be a couple of months and you will feel a completely different person. Add music into your lifestyle. Try and sing as much as you can, or hum or whistle. Make it seem like you're happy and fake it till you make it if you can't, because it does work. And you'll find that's what I did. I faked it to make it out. The last time I was really down, and it started to work. And then that became who I was again. I was somebody who was more balanced. So, that I'm not, I am a professional psychologist. This is advice, and this is rooted in lots of experience, but also a lot of personal experience. And I still do these things all the time. I have checklists of things that I do. Now, you might want to throw anything into that mix that you want to do, anything that makes you feel contented, reminds you of good old times, anything like that. All good. Just get that posture good, that movement right, and get some happy things going on in your life that would ordinarily make most people happy. You have that attitude as well, that you think would make most people smile or most people happier. Then try it. And fight against it. And see how long you can fight against trying to do happy things. You won't be able to do it for long before you start to feel a little bit better. I'm not suggesting this is happiness time. I'm just saying this is climbing out of depression time. And then for that, you need to take responsibility for your daily actions to get yourself out of the current mental state. Not what happened to get you there, what you do from there on. And I'll leave it there. Always a pleasure. I love these conversations, the long form ones I get to have. I'll leave it there. You be good, I'll be lucky, and I'll see you next time.